Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. It's Cody, Gotham's Caped Crusader. We're keeping it geekly. Yes, this is your number one stop for all things geek culture, from comic books to video games and so much more. And man, oh man, am I excited, because not only do we have some heavy-hitting news for you guys today, but we got some fresh DC comics right out the oven. So without further hesitation, let's go ahead and just dive right into this week in geek and see what's going on in the geek world. So right off the rip, in an interesting turn of events, it looks like Robert Pattinson's The Batman is going to be delayed until 2022. We have official confirmation from Warner Brothers, reported by USA Today, that The Batman is being officially delayed until March 4th, 2022, and this is a huge jump from October 1st, 2021. Now, this is a huge hit with all theaters closing its doors once again. I could definitely see why they would want to delay the movie, but with streaming services just making leaps and bounds, there are some questions that are being raised. Now, I, for one, am leaning towards the fact that Robert Pattinson got Zoe Kravitz pregnant on set, who is acting as Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman. That would make some really interesting shoots, and I would almost suggest that Warner Brothers would want to try to reshoot some of them scenes, to save face. Now, with that being said, we're going to be moving on to another interesting development. Valorant is going to be getting a new spin-off, and this time it is going to be hitting the mobile industry. Now, with all the success running behind Valorant at such rampant speeds, it was only a matter of time before we seen something like this happen, and it is officially getting announced by Riot. Now, with PUBG, Call of Duty to Apex having their own mobile versions on a smartphone, it was only time before Valorant follows suit. There is not a whole lot of news to break to you besides the fact that Riot is working on bringing its tactical shooter to mobile devices. The only thing that Riot has given us so far is that the new version is going to be called Valorant Mobile. Now, some things to note here is Riot has reported that it not only averages 14 million monthly players, but 1 million concurrent viewers tuned in to their tournament for the finals on May 31st. That is freaking phenomenal. It's always awesome to see a game make such leaps and bounds, and with only a year's time, that's pretty insane. Now, on to our last piece of news. It looks like Dark Horse Comics is going to launch a gaming and digital entertainment division. Dropped in an interview with Venture Beat, Dark Horse Games is going to be the official name of this new gaming and digital entertainment branch. Now, they're going to partner up with someone who's yet to be named, but this branch is going to focus on bringing first-party titles to the gaming realm, and this is going to give us almost 425 different and unique worlds at our fingertips. This is going to be freaking insane. With so many IP titles in the works, we could see titles such as Hellboy, Sin City, and The Umbrella Academy hit the gaming platforms, and they are going to be rumored to be working with several of the world's top gaming companies. Johnny Lee from Dark Horse Games has been quoted saying, "We right now have spent a lot of time on finding the right in-game collaborations at AAA level where stories and the characters fit. We are at a late stage discussions with several of them, and so if those go well, you'll see pretty big Dark Horse comic characters in live AAA games no later than Q1 next year." So that's coming soon. That's right around the corner. Now, Dark Horse Comics has been around for quite some time, being established in 1986. That's 35 years of properties to work with. Now, with that being said, guys, that does wrap up this Week in Geek, but stay tuned. We have those fresh posts coming right out the oven. So that is going to lead us into our first issue, which is going to be Crushing Lobo, issue number 1, written by Markio Tamika, with art being done by Amici Namuelpan. Now, this issue begins with Crush taking on a swarm of enemies within New York, and as she's fighting them, she's kind of just giving us a breakdown of her backstory. And as she launches the main villain into space, she gets a little ding on her phone, a reminder that in 10 minutes, Katie's birthday is going to begin. So we get to see this interesting panel of her just rush home, and she's changing while like mid-motorcycle, swerving in and out of traffic. And even though she arrives late to the party, Katie's more than happy to see her. Now, this party was really interesting. Katie's friends, of course, are pretty different from Crush. Crush, of course, looks like a heavy metal rocker, and all of Katie's friends are just dressed to the T in just pink outfits and girly girl attire. And that is when Katie's parents step in, and there was an interesting interaction between Crush and the parents, and as Crush knocks over the birthday cake, that's when Katie steps in and saves the day. Now we get to see a rather tender moment between the two as Crush and Katie are dancing and just having fun and just going ham, as you should at a birthday party. But that's quickly stopped as Crush's Teen Titan protocol is set off and a toxic gas engulfs the party, just ruining it. And Katie, of course, is, for lack of better words, angry and sends Crush home. And after getting broken up, we see Crush at her apartment just off the grid for 3 days. That's when Red Arrow just goes there and just demands to be let in. And we see another tender moment between the two, and Crush gives us another little bit of insight within her life. We see her transitioning from parents that were just arrested for stealing and just, criminals, to Lobo, her biological parent, trying to kill her. And that's when we found out that Lobo has reached out and he actually wants to visit her. He's been in prison for some time. He's been seeing a therapist and he's trying to change his ways. Now, this is a really interesting read. This is a book that not only was set for DC's Pride Month because of the relationship, I feel, between Crush and Katie, but also just advertised because of Crush and Lobo's relationship. They wanted, I think, to kind of repair that because these two together would just be unstoppable. Now, another interesting read for me was Justice League issue number 62, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with the art being done by Zermanico. We begin with Queen Hippolyta arriving at the Hall of Justice, and she wants to apologize for how rude she was earlier. And while talking to the Flash, she realizes that the Justice League have other matters on their hand as they're fighting a pretty nefarious foe. Now, as the Flash is talking to her, he realizes he made a pretty severe miscalculation. He set the Justice League to a completely different Earth on a whole nother dimensional plane. And this is going to spell trouble for the gang. We see a huge fight ensue. Now, keep in mind, the Justice League, while they've been on this planet, have been losing their powers, and they are getting completely decimated without question. Now, while up in the air, we see Naomi and Black Adam talking and trying to, I guess, survey the situation, and there is a huge explosion. And we see none other than Queen Hippolyta standing on top of Brutus. Now, that was a very interesting moment. And she, of course, in true fashion, just screams out, challenging anyone to step up to the plate because she is ready to take their head. But that is when another contender steps in, none other than Zumbado. I loved how this issue just put the reader in the feeling of defeat and quickly just ups the ante and just then hits you with a Hail Mary. I'm pretty interested to see what happens in the next one and what Zumbado has in store for the Justice League. Now, with that being said, we do have our last issue of the week, which is Batman issue 109, written by James Tynion IV, with art being done by Jorge Jimenez. We begin this issue with Bruce fresh off his tour with Miracle Molly, and as he's suiting up, he's talking to the Oracle, and they all come to the conclusion that these scarecrows are just popping up all over Gotham. Tension is just smothering the city, and social media and just news outlets are filling the dots in between, and we just begin to see this overwhelming wave of terror begin. And just like Bruce said, this is going to be a scarecrow attack that doesn't involve a single drop of fear toxin at all. Social media is just going to do the job for him. And as he's walking out the door, he demands that the Oracle get in contact with Ghostmaker at any cost, and he wants the schematics for the Saint Industries Tower. It's time to end this. It was really comical to see Ghostmaker within his cave, aka the Haunt, and see how he's trying to outdo Batman at every step in Fawcett, and the interaction between Harley Quinn that quickly ensues. She doesn't know if he's there to just seduce her, to kill her, or what. She's just left confused, and Ghostmaker is having a heyday with it, but it doesn't last long because that's when the gardener steps in. She needs Harley Quinn to reach out and get a hold of Poison Ivy, because Poison Ivy is deep within Gotham in a deep jungle and no one can get to her, and she is starting to destroy the foundation of Gotham itself, and things are not looking good for the future of the city. We arrive to Mr. Saint having to cut off a meeting rather quickly, because that's when Batman jumps in and he demands to know where Scarecrow is and what's going on. And that's when we see this rather insane speech from Mr. Saint start to unfold, and the tone is just set out and laid out perfectly, and Batman, he doesn't want to hear it. He goes to stop Mr. Saint, but that's when Peacekeeper number 1 steps into the scene, because this program, the Magistrate, was just greenlit before Bruce dropped in, and it's time to end this. It's time to show Bruce what's really going to happen. And while Bruce is knocked down and kept down, Mr. Saint continues his speech, and then he goes on to say how it's insane that these anarchists are just causing destruction and just chaos. And it would be insane for the City Hall to explode. And right at that moment, City Hall does explode. And Bruce realizes what's going on. They're going to paint this on the collective insanity and point the blame towards them and just further enforce the need for the magistrate, things are going to a crippling factor. And this is how Future State began. Man, oh man, we had some awesome books this week and some crazy news that was happening. I'm sorry it came out a day late. With our move, we kind of needed to get some blackout curtains. I wasn't prepared for the front room to be as bright as it is. But with that being said, look how big and open the space is. I'm grateful for it, guys. Now, with that being said, you can catch me on all my social media platforms at Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and so much more at Job for Cody. And as always, guys, keep it geekly.